to another Hayley-Roxanna crafts video. In my last video we looked at full cross stitches and how to do them. So today we're going to look at our partial stitches, so our quarter stitch and 3/4 stitch, and how I use them in my charts. I like quarter and 3/4 stitches as they give you a steeper diagonal line, and they can also make your curves a little bit rounder. But I know some stitchers aren't very keen on doing them and are possibly even a little bit scared of them. And I feel some of this might be because they don't really know whether they're supposed to be doing a quarter stitch or a 3/4 stitch. But I'm hoping the way that I have represented these stitches on my charts will actually help to eliminate some of this being unsure and being scared of what to do, and actually help people use the quarter and 3/4 stitches. So let's start by looking at our quarter stitch. This is how the quarter stitch is shown on my cross stitch charts. As you can see, the symbol indicating which colour of thread you should be using is in a small square inside the larger square indicating the square of fabric. This shows you which corner of the square your quarter stitch should be done in. On the colour chart, the little square is coloured in. To me, this makes it just easier to distinguish, which is why I prefer using my coloured charts. So now we know what the quarter stitch looks like on the chart, we need to be able to put that on our fabric. So I've got some 14 count Aida and some pink stranded cotton already threaded up into my tapestry needle. So if we start with a quarter stitch that is in the bottom left hand corner of your square, then we need to come up in the bottom left hand hole like so. Then instead of going down into the top right hand corner like you would if you were doing your full cross stitch, we need to go down in the middle of the square. So you just need to use your needle to force a hole into the middle of the square so you can pull through like so. Now if we wanted the quarter stitch to be in the top right hand corner, I would do that by coming up into the middle of my square like so, and then I would go down into the top right hand corner. Okay, you could also do that by coming up into the top right hand corner first and then going down into the middle of the square like so. Some people just find it easier to do that by coming up into the hole that's in the corner where they want the quarter stitch and always going down in the middle. Okay, so if I was doing a quarter stitch that was in the bottom right hand corner, I would come up in the bottom right hand hole and then go down in the middle. Just give that needle a little wiggle to get it through. You have to try and get the threads to part as evenly as you can to make the hole, the threads of your fabric. Okay, like so. And then if you want one in the top left hand corner, I would do it by coming up in the middle like so, and then going down into the top left hole. But again, you could also do that if you prefer coming up in the hole by coming up into the top left hand hole and then going down into the center. Okay, like so. You have to get it as close to the center as you can. So we've got the 4 quarter stitches there in the different corners. Okay, if you find it a little bit difficult to pierce that hole into the fabric, you've got a couple of options. You could, instead of using your tapestry needle, which has the blunt end, use an actual sewing needle which has got a sharper end to it, which might make it a little bit easier just to get down between the strands of the fabric to make that hole. Alternatively, you could take a pin just to poke the hole in first, kind of like I just did with the needle, like that. I also find sometimes that you can just give your needle a little bit of a wiggle, and that helps to get it through the hole, or through the middle, should I say, the square, to make that hole. Okay, whichever way you find easiest. But those are the quarter stitches. Now we're going to look at the 3/4 stitches. This is how they're shown on my charts. As you can see, the symbol indicating which colour of thread to use is in one of the corners of the square. The corner it is in indicates which corner your 3/4 stitch needs to be in. As you can see on the colour chart, it's slightly clearer, as you do get the colour triangle in the corner as well. So now we know what the 3/4 stitch looks like on the chart, let's actually stitch them. So if we start with a 3/4 stitch in the bottom left hand corner. So to do that, I would come up in the bottom left hand corner of the square, like so, and then go down into the middle of the square, so forming like a quarter stitch. And then to make that into a 3/4, we need to come up in the bottom right hand hole, like so, and go down into the top left hole, like that. So it's 3/4 of a full cross stitch. Some people do refer to these as half stitches, although technically they're 3/4, but I think that's because it covers half of the square when it's completed. Okay, so if we were now doing a 3/4 stitch that was in the top right hand corner of the square, for that I would come up in the middle, like so, and then go down into the top right to form my quarter stitch, and then I would come up in the bottom right and down in the top left to complete the 3/4. Okay, again with that quarter stitch, if you prefer to come up the hole and down in the middle to make that quarter, you can, absolutely fine. It's just that's what the stitch needs to finish looking like if you need your 3/4 in the top right hand corner. Now if we were doing a 3/4 stitch into the bottom right hand corner, I would do it by doing that longer half stitch first. So I'd come up in my bottom left and down in my top right, like so, and then I would come up in the bottom right and then go down in the middle. But as you go down in the middle, you've just got to be careful that you don't pierce that thread that's going across, that you get your needle to go under it and then through the centre of the fabric, like so. Okay, and there is that 3/4. Okay, and then the other 3/4 stitch, which would be in the top left hand corner, for that I would come up in the bottom left hole and down into the top right, and then I would come up into the middle of my square, but you do need to be careful that you don't pierce your fabric, pierce your thread that's going across as you do that. Okay, so you come through the middle of the fabric for that square and then down into the top left. Okay, now again, if you prefer to do your quarter stitches by coming up the hole and down in the centre, you can do that for this stitch. That is absolutely fine. Also, if you find it easier to do the quarter stitch before you put the other half across to make it into the 3/4, again, that's absolutely fine. So for that last stitch that I did, you might prefer to come up in the hole and then down into the centre of the square, like so, and then put the half in to make your 3/4 stitch, Okay, like that. Again, it doesn't matter that I've done it in a different way, it still looks like that one, and that's the important thing, to get your stitch in the right place to form the picture. Okay, just like that. So there's our 4 3/4 stitches. So now we know what our 1/4 and 3/4 stitches look like and how to stitch them. We're going to go back to our castle hanging decoration that we've been looking at in my previous videos, and we can carry on stitching this. So take what I did in the last video, these full crosses. It's this bit here which is in G, which when we checked the key was DMC 725. Okay, and if I turn back, so far we just did the rows of G that were full stitches, so it's these rows here down to here. So if we look, the next row on the pattern, there is a 3/4 stitch in the top right hand corner, that's G, followed by 2 full cross stitches. Now I'll show you the way I like to do this, because I like to do all my stitches that go this way first, and then I do everything that is this way. Okay, so for me, if I was doing this 3/4 in the top right followed by 2 full, I would come up in the middle of the square below the first cross in the row above, like so, and then go down into my top right. Then I would do the bottom halves of the 2 full stitches, like so. And then I would cross them back over. Get the right hole, does help. Okay, so it's as I come back, there's the 2 full stitches done, that I would then put in the half stitch to complete that first 3/4. Okay, like so. Then the next row, we have got a 1/4 stitch in the G followed by 2 full stitches. Okay, now it can be a little bit hard to see what colour should be there because of the back stitching line going through it. This is the reason that I do also provide copies of my charts with no back stitching lines on them, because then it does just make it that little bit easier to see that it's a 1/4 stitch with 2 full ones all in the G. Okay, so let's stitch that. So I would come up in the middle like so, and down to make my 1/4, and then I would do the 2 full stitches. 1, and then cross back. So I've done all my stitches travelling to the right and then all my stitches travelling to the left. And you have to remember, because that last stitch, or that first stitch, that one there is a 1/4, I don't need to do any extra stitches into that square at the moment, because that's all there is in there in the G. Now, some people might prefer, I'll keep with the one that's got no back stitching on at the moment, you might prefer, when you're doing stitches that are 3/4, you might want to do the whole of that 3/4 stitch before doing any full stitches. In this case, it's only 1. But you might find if you've got a long way to go, when you come back, you might have forgotten whether it's a 3/4 stitch there or not, especially if it was going in a different direction. Okay, so you might want to do, if we take that row, do quarter stitch first. So again, you might prefer to come up in the hole and go down into the center to make your 3/4 stitch, and then you might want to complete your 3/4 stitch like so, and then put in the full stitches, any full stitches next to it. In this case it is only the one. Okay, like that. Okay, so if we now look at our next row, you can see again we've got a quarter stitch, and this time there are 2 full stitches, so we can complete that. You often find that quarter stitches and 3/4 stitches, I'm having trouble getting that through the hole today. Ooh, can't find the middle. There we go. Yeah, quarter stitches and 3/4 stitches often come in pairs, and they'll be joined in one of the corners. This is what helps to make either a steeper diagonal line or a rounder curve, depending on what the 3/4 and quarter stitches are being used for. Yep, like I said, they're often in pairs, so if you've done a 3/4 stitch on one row, you might have a quarter stitch on the next. Okay, let's just do the 2 full. Like that, and again we don't need to do anything with that last one because it's a quarter stitch, so it's already completed, and that's taken us to there. So if we have a look now, the next 3 rows are all just full stitches. So I will turn the camera off and just complete those 3 rows. I don't think you need to watch me do those. You can always have a look at the previous video if you want to know more about full stitches, and then we'll pick up with this row here where we've got a 3/4 stitch at the end of the row and see how we do that. Okay, so I've now completed all these 3 rows of full cross stitches. Okay, like so. So this is the next row, and here there are 2 full stitches and then a 3/4 stitch. So I would do these again by doing all my stitches that are traveling to the right first. So the 2 full stitches, like so, and then the longer half stitch of my 3/4, and then I would complete my 3/4 because it is in the top left hand corner, so I just need to come up in the middle, watching I don't pierce my thread that's there. I just come through the fabric. Okay, like so, and down into the top left, so that's completed that 3/4. And then just finish off my full stitches. Okay, so the next row has got 1 full stitch and a 3/4 stitch. Now again, I'm going to show you an alternative way of doing this for anybody who prefers, when they're doing their 3/4 stitch, to do their quarter stitch first and then the 3/4. Okay, so I've got the 1 full stitch. Okay, now on this occasion, if you want to do your quarter stitch first, you can't actually come up into the corner hole to do it, because if you do that, you will just undo the stitch you've just done. So you will have to try and come through the center of the square from the back, like so, and down, and then you can complete that 3/4. And then finish off that full stitch. Okay, and then just to complete this little section here, we'll do this last 3/4 in G. Okay, so I can get hold of my needle. So I will do it the way I prefer to do my stitches. So that's 3 the half of the 3/4 and then up in the middle. Sometimes it might take you a couple of goes to get your needle into a place that you're happy with, and make sure that any stitches there are out of the way. Just pull that through and then pop it down. And then that's that section of G done. Like so. So you can then tie your thread off at the back if you want to, however you're deciding to finish off. Again, I will do a video later on that will show you different ways of finishing off your thread so you can cut it off, ready to move on to the next section that you decide to do, whether that's to go and do more G's or do some of the other colours that are around this section here. Okay, now as you can see on the chart, a lot of these squares that have got a 3/4 in the G have also then got a quarter, in this case in whatever colour the D is. So you'd have to consult our chart to check that. And where we've got a quarter in the G, there is then a 3/4 in the D. Okay, but also on this bit here, you can see we've got 2 3/4 stitches in the same square. Okay, so down here where we've already done the G, there's then a 3/4 also in the K. Okay, now some people might not like doing 3/4 stitches in the same square. I actually do. I think it gives a better effect, a fuller effect of colour, more solid colour. And then in this case, we go back to the one with the back stitching on. You can see there is a back stitching line going through. And in the next video, when we're looking at back stitching, I shall show you how to make sure that that back stitching line is in the right place if you've got 2 3/4 stitches in the same square. So that's your quarter and 3/4 stitches. Hope that helps you with using them when you're cross stitching. If you want to have a go at the castle hanging decoration that I'm using in these videos, I will pop a link below to the chart for it. It's completely free of charge. And you can now complete all of the full stitches, quarter stitches and 3/4 stitches in that design, ready for when we look at the back stitching next time. I will also pop some links below for the items that I have used in this video, and if you've got any questions, stick them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them for you as usual. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!